critical community improvements. We are partnered with the city on this. The city is the neighborhood lead, but we're supporting the city in execution of all three of these CCIs. A little bit of background on this effort. During the planning process, which lasted for 2 years, had a lot of neighborhood input and community conversations. There were two things that really rose to the top: environmental conservation of the beautiful environments that are in the neighborhood, and a very strong concern about environmental degradation due to dumping and illegal trash. And this has a negative effect, obviously, on the neighborhood. It damages the natural environment, it deteriorates the neighborhood, and it hinders revitalization. And so this Environmental Stewardship Center serves as a focal point to counteract some of that. It has an education piece, building awareness about environmental conservation and environmental management, and it promotes healthy living. And we intend to partner with Live Thrive and the city to address these environmental concerns through the creation of this Environmental Stewardship Center. So a little bit of background on Live Thrive. You may have heard of Live Thrive. They operate the two charm centers. One, their original charm center is in Chosewood Park on Englewood Avenue, and then they have just opened a second charm center in DeKalb County on Belvedere. Live Thrive is more than a charm center. They actually do outreach and have education programs. They organize community cleanups, corporate events, and in fact, they were part of at least 3 community cleanups we had in the Choice neighborhood area. And through their waste diversion, that is a substantial part of what Charm does. They improve Atlanta's water quality. So they take materials that can't typically go in recycling, household trash that can't go in recycling. So here is an image of the Environmental Stewardship Center. It is on a portion of the Bowen site, which you can see in red. It occupies the northwest corner of the site, which also has some environmental concerns that we need to remediate, and it also occupies a portion of an acquisition property, 1041 Field Road. You can see the two components. The lower left is the Charm Center itself, so that's the recycling drop-off, and then the education and meeting space is in the Innovation Center, which is at the top right. So we're hoping that this Environmental Stewardship Center that combines both of these functions will do a lot of things. It will, of course, do what Charm does, which is divert hazardous household waste or difficult to recycle household waste out of the waste stream, and then it offers education, workforce development, and opportunities for volunteers. Both facilities will strive to provide LEED certification on them, and this all is involved in adhering to the theme of regeneration, which is essentially what the Bowen redevelopment, Choice Neighborhood redevelopment is about. And entering into this MOU allows Live Thrive to do two things. It allows them to move forward with design of these facilities, and it allows them to begin fundraising from their corporate sponsors. And here are just a few pictures of their new Belvedere facility, which is what we used to base the recycling yard on. So are there any questions? Yes.
Mr. Alvarado.
I
Yes.
do. First of all, thank you. I always appreciate when leadership in Atlanta Housing seeks innovation and meets the moment where it is, and recognizing that it's just not about building verticals, but it's about investing in communities and recognizing the opportunities that exist in order to fulfill that mission, and this being one of them. But I do have some questions. One, just for the sake of the audience, because it wasn't, for me, it wasn't clearly illustrated in the map that this is a public, it's publicly accessible. This, right, and just because it didn't indicate the entranceway to it in the designs, but I know it is, but I just want the public to know that this will be something that the community can have access to.
It is. It will be both connected internally to the Bowen redevelopment, so the street network that will be ultimately long-term at Bowen. But in the near term, it will be connected to a public road, Field Road, which is just immediately to the west of the facility.
First thing. Second thing is, I'm also curious in the overall design outside of it. It'd be nice if there was dedicated bike path leading to it.
Yes.
That way we can mitigate use of cars and think multimodal. And so if this can be a space for people to think there's other ways for me to get from point A to point B and show intentionality from the city to do that and Atlanta Housing, that'd be great.
Absolutely.
And the third is maybe down the line, you could think about creating a resiliency hub with solar power available, because in cases of emergency in the community, then people need to know where they can go to charge their phones, laptops, and so on and so forth. And I think also offers an additional opportunity to teach about solar power and the utility it has and the benefit it offers communities.
Yes, thank you very much. The detailed design will include considerations about a resiliency hub, and all of the streets, future streets at Bowen will have sidewalks and safe cycle routes on them. So thank you for that.
I had an additional question, and yes, +1 to everything you said. This is, I mean, they've really been a great service and partner in our city, and there's really nobody like them. So it's really great to see them integrated and part of the plan, and for us to be thinking about the right ways to support them. You mentioned corporate sponsors that they would raise funds from. Do you know if they have those identified and who they are?
Well, I know that we've had some conversations with 2 sponsors. The Chick-fil-A Foundation has been, in fact, they had a representative that was part of the planning effort and were interested in supporting the creation of Charm. And then Novellus is another corporate sponsor that we had conversations with. They're very interested or very eager to be part of this, but what they need is a formal letter, the MOU, hence the MOU, to actually start working on it. So, but there were conversations. Yes.
I would just say that, you know, hopefully after today, once we approve the MOU, I would urge them to pursue the sponsorship path and secure that as soon as they can, just so that, you know, they have some insulation from some of the uncertainty that exists right now. So in whatever way we can be supportive of their sponsorship seeking efforts, I would encourage us to do that. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Any other questions? Joel? Yeah.
Is, to your knowledge, is this the only facility of this nature in the city of Atlanta? I'm unaware if there's another one in the city.
So there's their original facility, which is on Hill Street in Chosewood Park. It's right next to the Beltline. It's smaller than this. They just opened a second facility, not in the city of Atlanta, in DeKalb County. It's on Belvedere Drive, near Columbia Drive, and that is larger. And so this one is sized according to that, but this would be their second facility in the city.
The only reason I bring that up, Madam Vice Chair, is that if this is going to be sort of an example of what we can offer in the city moving forward, this is not a one-off, I assume. I think if we see that this has real value, we may want to explore expanding it in other facilities. I just wanted to recognize and acknowledge that we have a multicultural, multilingual city now, in that if there are opportunities to show what this would look like in regards to offering in other languages so that people can feel more included in the conversation and not feel like this is not for them. I just want to take that in consideration if the intention is to showcase this and to see this as a possible addition to future developments we have in the city.
Yes, it is, and that's a great suggestion, and we will work with Live Thrive to affect that. Thank you. It's great.
Any other questions or comments? I will just add my kudos from an environmental justice perspective. This is just really inspirational, and that, you know, whether it's this facility, but to the extent that developments that we support can redress past harms, that's really a lovely thing to see. So kudos to the full team for the partnership and being really thoughtful in your approach, given the past challenges with dumping and other negative consequences to the neighborhood. Hearing no other questions or comments, I will call for the vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Any abstentions? All right, the motion carries.
Okay. Commissioners, before you is a copy of the resolution number 2504, where the Housing Authority of the City of Atlanta, Georgia seeks authorization to take all actions necessary to amend the additional services agreement with Bowen District Developers, LLC, for the Wilkes Circle infrastructure.
All right, may I have a motion to consider Resolution 2504? May I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Elliott and seconded by Commissioner Hooker.
Okay.
Welcome
And I
back.
think we've got Mr. Sketch.
Yes, so I'm here to ask approval to take all actions necessary to amend the additional services agreement for the infrastructure on Wilkes Circle to support the first two phases of the Bowen redevelopment. It would increase AH funding for the public infrastructure for these first two phases by $2,695,750. So the background of Bowen, I'm sure you're aware of, 74 acres. We have a JV development team, Bowen District Developers, McCormick Baron Salazar, and the Benoit Group. And of course, HUD has given us a $40 million grant to create this revitalization. There are two portions to it. There's the CNIG Choice Neighborhood 25 acres, which is the primary focus of this, and then there's the balance of 49 acres, which brings the total up to 2,000 or so units. Here's the map, Council District 9, Councilmember Dustin Hillis, and NPUG. And then this shows, I think you've seen this before, but this shows the extent of the public infrastructure, Wilkes Circle. It's basically covering the existing portion of Wilkes Circle, which is that long portion of street, a little bit of demolition, the construction of a stormwater retention pond in dashed lines, and then an extension of Wilkes Circle down to Yates Drive. This doesn't show the construction of the first stormwater pond, which is just to the north, Pond 1. The pond you see there is pond number 2. And this shows the layout of the 6 choice neighborhood phases. For Bowen, phase 1 is first out of the ground, phase 2 will follow, and these public infrastructure improvements will support those 2 phases as well as phases 3 and 4. So this is the original budget. That was an estimate at the time. It was $6.5 million. We had approximately $5.2 million for construction hard costs, and then general conditions and overhead and profit was an additional $683,000, totaling up to 6.5 with a contingency. And this is the revised budget that shows 7.8 million of the construction cost, and this went into additional funds needed for subsurface conditions, some material cost changes, and those sorts of things, payment and performance bond, and then additional soft costs, including the construction management fee, some consulting time for to deal with a land swap with Atlanta Public Schools, some permit fees, and street lights. So it brings the total up to $9,195,750. Are there any questions?
Joel?
It may not be, let me just ask a question. I'm just curious, with the additional costs, how does it affect operational costs? And it may not, but I just curious, is any additional work we're doing, does it increase the amount of operational costs we have or not?
It doesn't. So this is being managed by our development team, Bowen District Developers, as part of a construction management agreement, so they're handling that. And this is really to build infrastructure according to City of Atlanta standards, so it's to get it up to what it needs to be. I hope that answers.
Yeah, the reason, I'm not really asking for me, but I just want people to realize that as we seek this, it doesn't mean that there's any additional cost that may come on afterwards, that they're clearly aware that this is a one-time thing and that it won't be any additional cost that would rise up.
And the streets will eventually be dedicated back to the city, hopefully.
Did you want to say something, Terry, before I ask a follow-up question? So one thing I'm curious about is how does the cost responsibility get allocated between the city, both in terms of its current budget as well as the Renew Atlanta bonds and that work? Not sure which of our streets are in there versus not. And then AH responsibility for infrastructure. Is there sort of like a clear criteria by which we are using sort of housing funds to support infrastructure versus the city?
Yeah. So on this particular development, the city is not supporting the cost of the infrastructure, so it was not included in any of the city's bond offerings. What the city has done is any of the road abandonment fees or any concessions they could provide to Atlanta Housing, they've done that, so we would not incur any additional cost. But the cost for the infrastructure is being borne by Atlanta Housing and the development team, and we're actually allocated the pro rata share of the affordability. So whatever the affordable housing component is, that pro rata share that's dedicated towards infrastructure, we would actually support that through our MTW dollars.
But you're elevating a challenge of developing our land in a way that is different than the infrastructure or with aging infrastructure, when we don't have a dedicated source for said infrastructure.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I would say that the city is, I think, going to continue to be in a posture of doing renewals on an infrastructure bond. And it's unfortunate that we didn't have our list of sort of things that we needed to support our developments in there, especially with a mayor who is so focused on housing as a top priority. I would make sure that as we move forward, we kind of have that ever-ready list of upcoming infrastructure, particularly because we will need to do as much as we can with the housing dollars we have, right? So
Yeah.
I would just recommend that the team sort of do that on an ongoing basis or early with the city, so that any opportunity to get access to funds that are not coming from our MTW dollars, we're maximizing.
No, and absolutely. And I will say, when I served in the capacity of Chief Operating Officer, we did elevate the projects to the city as well as the estimated infrastructure costs. Specifically for Bowen, the city determined one of the best ways to support was to provide close to $17 million in funding to support the entire Choice Neighborhood implementation grant effort. And so that's how we're working with the city on that piece. For Inglewood, the city did provide infrastructure funding for us to support our pro rata share for infrastructure on that particular site.
That's really helpful context. Thanks, Terry.
Two quick questions for me. One's probably a follow-up. Are these set costs? Are we locked in? I was just noticing the contingency of only 50,000 on soft costs. Do we think they could move further, or is this locked in costs?
I don't know how to answer that. This should be it
Okay.
to build it out.
I mean, not trying to hold you to it,
Right,
but just are
right.
these, you know,
Right.
is there a
Construction
limited window to which these
Yeah.
costs are set?
Construction is underway, and it should be complete, by the middle of the year. So this is.
So,
probably
yeah,
it.
we have pretty good line of sight. And then maybe just as a follow-up some other time, if we look at phases 1, 2, 3, and 4, how many total residential units we think will be on those? It'd just be interesting as a data point to think about total cost of infrastructure per housing unit.
Sure.
So I don't expect you to pull that out of a hat, but that would just be helpful to understand as we're evaluating infrastructure costs.
We can follow up on
That'd be
that.
great.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? All right. Hearing no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions? The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Okay, Commissioners, before you is a copy of the resolution number 2505, where the Housing Authority of the City of Atlanta, Georgia seeks authorization to take all actions necessary to submit a disposition application to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development for the Inglewood Phase 1C homeownership development.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I am Tricia Manning.
Oh, one moment. She's going to do a quick motion. It's all right.
I'm jumping ahead. We're on 2505, correct?
Yes,
All right.
Madam
May I have
Vice
a
Chair.
motion to consider Resolution 2505?
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Commissioner Faruqi and seconded by Commissioner Alvarado.
Ms. Manning, Ms. Manning, thank you.
No worries. Good afternoon. I am Tricia Manning. I am the Director of Development. I come before you this afternoon seeking approval to take all actions necessary to secure HUD approval to dispose of approximately 6.3 acres of AH vacant land to an affiliate of the Benoit Group at less than fair market value. In 2018, the Benoit Group was selected to develop a portion of the site formerly known as Englewood Manor. TBG will be the lead for the project, with Cityscape Housing Partners, LLC, as a designated home builder. The parcel is to be known as Englewood 1C. Englewood 1A and 1B have previously closed and will develop both multifamily and senior housing. Sale of this land will assist in the creation of 79 home ownership opportunities, with 16 of those being affordable homes. As a reminder, the Englewood Manor site consists of approximately 30 acres in the Chosewood Park neighborhood, approximately 1.5 miles from south of the Grant Park area and Zoo Atlanta. Jason Winston is the council member for the area in Council District 1. The NPU is NPU-Y. The site plan shows where the affordable and market rate units, all home ownership units, will be relative to the larger multifamily and senior developments on the site. Next steps towards construction, should we get approval today, would be submitting the HUD disposition application, getting that approval from HUD, returning to the board for the final land sale approval, and closing on the financing and conveyance of the land. So again, AH is requesting authorization to take all actions necessary to secure approval from the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development to dispose of 6.36 acres, fee simple, to an ownership entity affiliated with the Benoit Group and Cityscape Housing Partners, LLC, at less than fair market value. The sale of the land will support 79 home ownership units, of which 16 will be affordable. Are there any questions or comments?
Questions from fellow commissioners?
16 versus 79, how does that feel for that neighborhood? I mean, what have the other parcels look like?
Yeah, so that, and I would invite Alan, Dr. Ferguson as well to the podium to address this, but that particular neighborhood is a neighborhood that we've seen in transition. You do see more market rate housing coming up from either a rental standpoint or a homeownership standpoint in Chosewood. This particular transaction relates to about a 20% affordability. If there's an opportunity, Dr. Ferguson, for you to add to that.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Good afternoon, board members. Yes, this particular neighborhood, as CEO Terry Lee has pointed out, has experienced a tremendous amount of transition and, quite frankly, a very short period of time, given the rapid development that's going on in this particular area. So from the time when initial discussions were being had regarding the development of this property and the single-family component to now, to this present day, there has been a tremendous increase in property values, especially for single-family housing development. And so that's really what has necessitated us really to come to the table in order to work with the present development team to really come up with a structure that works for both Atlanta Housing in terms of trying to create the opportunity for affordable home ownership, as well as works for the developer in enabling them to facilitate the home ownership as well as the remainder of the development. So, you know, I will say that there's been a lot of back and forth, you know, with the developer. You know, the negotiations have been amicable, but they have not been easy. They've had to make concessions, and we've had to make some concessions at the table, but all parties are very much so motivated in terms of trying to move this project forward and take advantage of this opportunity.
Thank you, that's really helpful. I would just channel what Vice Chair Kirsch has said many times before and like remind us of that. But it's helpful for us to have some sense for each, at least for the key neighborhoods that we are in partnership with the city on neighborhood transformation, to have a good point of view on what is the acceptable range for us, right? We've talked about sort of criteria before, but in prior discussions, there's been recognition that it kind of depends on the neighborhood, right? And what the actual housing stock there looks like, what the current residents, what their income levels are, and what is the need to really promote a mixed income community, and what is our contribution through our development around that. But in this case, as well as Bowen, as well as, you know, there's certain neighborhoods where we have a pretty strong point of view of what that is. So it would just be helpful to have some rubric going forward of, even if it's neighborhood specific, what is the range that pencils and we think we need to try and hold the line on so that we're maximizing investment and affordability.
No, absolutely. Point well taken.
Thank you.
Okay. If there are no other questions, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Any abstention? Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Manning.
Okay, Commissioners, before you is a copy of Resolution Number 2506, where the Housing Authority of the City of Atlanta, Georgia seeks authorization
all of our overall call volume and to provide an effective resource to answering and response to calls. On average, we receive about 130,000 calls per year. Of those calls, approximately 90,000 are information status only that are handled by our current IVR system. And so some of the type of questions that the IVR actually respond to is status of certification, status of contract, status of inspection, appointment date and time, payment activity, and document retention. Our current contract is set to expire in March of 2025. Therefore, last year we set out an RFP back in February to get respondents for the new IVR system. As a part of it, we sent this out to 113 organizations. We had 9 MBE organizations, 7 WE organizations. 21 of those that received it said that they were going to actively bid on it. We actually received about 8 proposals. Of those 8 proposals, 5 were a part of the MBE WE community, and we actually awarded it to MBE WE organization. The evaluation committee reviewed responses, and based off the criteria that we set forth in the RFP, we determined that 3 proposals were in a competitive range. And after final conversations and receiving the best and final offer, the committee recommended that we enter into a contract with Dirad Technologies. The initial contract to be 3 years from the date the contract is executed by AH, with 7 option years to renew. AH also reserves the right to terminate the contract at any time, and the Dirad IVR annual subscription price is $34,800 per year, and there is a one-time implementation fee of $21,350.
Any questions from the board?
One quick question.
Yes, sir.
Will this enable us to have handle a higher call volume if needed?
Yes, sir. So one of the things that also is a part of the upgrade, they're going to be providing some new functionality. We're going to have a chat bot to put onto the website, and there will be some AI enhancements that they are making as a part of the new solution as well. So that should increase our capacity.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I just had two comments/questions. They're aware that there are a lot of seniors that might be calling, and is the focus on accessibility there, or was that part of our requirements or not? Whether it's hearing or, requiring vision, to read a text message or whatever the case might be. I'm curious about how that's being addressed.
I'm not sure about that. I have to get with my colleagues and get you an answer for that. But I do know that DIRAD has been our IVR solution since 2012.
Okay.
So they're familiar with our business and have been working with us. But I would double check to see if that was a part of the
Yeah,
evaluation.
I would just, if we can, especially in the implementation, get maybe a small focus group of seniors, or, actually get input from our community so that it's easy to use. So that was just one. The second comment I had was to make sure that if calls go to 311 to the city, that there is, appropriate routing to our system. Because, not every resident knows where to call a first-time resident that may be calling in general about where can I get a housing voucher. I'm assuming that these calls include people like that who are just looking for information.
Yeah.
So to just build that in a little bit so that they're not having to figure out this is the number to call. I don't know, Terry, if you have.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So to your first point, so both points are excellent. To your first point, we'll work with the Resident Services Committee to develop a focus group to actually look at and be a part of this process as we upgrade our technology system from a communication standpoint. To the second point, what we're finding is that we're receiving not just a lot of calls, but also emails from residents in Atlanta requesting some level of assistance, be it assistance to gain a housing trust voucher, or just even understanding where affordable housing may even rest within the city. And so what I have challenged our technology department to do is look at how we can use AI as a solution to assist us, along with 311, but to assist us to be able to route those calls to the correct provider in order to make sure people are getting help with any inquiries that they may have. So that is something that we've actively been undertaking. We're looking at a model now that's in El Paso, Texas, where they're utilizing AI for customer service purposes, and it has really helped to streamline not just the service, but also enhance and optimize the assistance that residents are receiving.
Just, I know, very forward-thinking regarding the purchasing of these types of services. So if our population changes demographically, would this have the ability to support that? Case in point, if, let's say, there's more non-English speaking people who are interested in our services, would this have the ability to communicate in those languages if we see that population growing to a threshold where we might need to do so?
Yes, sir. I do know that they do have multiple languages that it can communicate in. I'm just not familiar with all of them at this moment, but it does have that capability for, at least from the language perspective. And then one of the things with, as Ms. Lee pointed out, is that with us trying to also look at the AI, how can that assist? A lot of that is embedded into that as well.
All right, any other questions or comments? You good? All right. Hearing no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioners, before you is a copy of Resolution Number 2507, where the Housing Authority of the City of Atlanta, Georgia seeks authorization to enter into an amendment to the contract with Yardi Systems, Inc. to add the case manager module.
May I have a motion to consider Resolution 2507? May I have a all right, it's been moved by Commissioner Faruqi and seconded by Commissioner Elliott. Mr. Martin.
Good afternoon again. The Housing Authority of the City of Atlanta is seeking board approval to amend the contract with Yardi System, Inc. and to add case manager and additional functionality for us. The prorated cost for case manager for the remaining portion of the current contract period of March 1st, 25 through September 30th, 2025 is $81,667.67. And for the rest of the remaining 5-year contract terms, the annual cost is $140,000 per year. This will result in a lifetime increase of the contract amount from $11,408,408 to $12,190,076. Atlanta Housing receives many requests of varying degrees of urgency. The agency's responsibility to the public trust requires that these inquiries be acknowledged and resolved in a timely manner. Today's process to address the matters is performed manually and is inefficient. Whether initiated by phone calls, emails, or the website, or directly with an AH staff, Yardi Case Manager is a software solution that will enable the agency to document all of the inquiries, eliminate the duplication of work, and reduce delayed response time and enhance operations. Yardi Case Manager is designed to streamline the communication between AH departments and by tracking all cases and accommodation requests easily in a centralized system. Some of the main attributes that we will have is being able to configure workflows, real-time data and reporting, automated case creation, increased visibility, fully integrated with existing Yardi modules, centralized repository for data, enhanced reporting, and then unlimited use cases that can be applied. Here is just a sample of what the system will offer us, where we can have graphical depictions of where we are, and then if you look below, there's actual cases that you can click in, see the status, the priority status of it, the location of it, and get other information by clicking into it and drilling down to it. This is just a list of some of the use cases that came up as a part of the conversation that this system could really be utilized to help us improve our operations here at Atlanta Housing. So pursuant to all applicable procurement regulations and as a competitive exception for software licenses for strategic information technology systems, Yardi software continues to be a mission-critical system to the overall operations of Atlanta Housing. AH recommends approving to amend the Yardi contract and to add the case manager module, as it will greatly improve AH operations. Thank you, and any questions for me?
Questions?
Not so much a question, but an observation from my days with my old employer, the ARC, and our aging team used case manager software, not specifically the Yardi system, but we use case manager software. And it's good, and it does help improve things, but I would recommend to you, Terry, and your team to set up a date a year after it's been, the functionality's been put in place, to do just a brief internal audit to see if it's missing any kind of critical things, because sometimes the artificial intelligence embedded in it is not able to really understand some of the human nuances, not quite yet. So maybe after a year or so with it, you might want to just do an audit to be sure things are tracking where you need them to go.
No, absolutely. Thank you for that.
I had a similar comment / question. My experience with systems like this is also that it's important in the training phase to have a couple of super users, people who are actually interested in learning the system and are interested in building that skill as well and expertise, because the rollout is usually more difficult than you expect, because it requires people to change the way they do their work, and they don't always have, even if they have the intention, they don't always have the right sort of direction on how to switch over when you're trying to do what you're trying to do on a day-to-day basis. but starting tomorrow, you want to try to transition into a different way of working. So I would just be thoughtful about the implementation, the training.
Is the intent to have this be sort of a, almost like a CRM as well? Or is it really going to be, I think of case manager as being resident facing.
Right, right.
Is it going to use is it going to track all of these relationships and sort of problem solving?
So right now, the specific was for the resident portion of it, but we are going to talk about the other capabilities that it could do and see where it might fit in, which ones we really want to use it at, which ones it doesn't really fit
Yeah.
good for us. But we will be
And maybe
examining
that
all
audit and seeing how it performs with
Yes, ma'am.
one will inform, applicability to others.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Thank you. All right. If there are no other questions or comments, I will call for the vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Can I ask one
Nope.
more?
Um,
Sorry.
hold that aye.
I apologize. What is the price escalation baked into the contract
1 second. 3%.
every year?
Every year, 3%? Yes, 3%, yes, every year.
I don't love that, but, I mean, this is the problem with software, right? I mean, they basically get you, and then you're locked in.
Yes, ma'am.
And you're locked into price escalations as well. Fundamentally, we should have an opportunity to renegotiate pricing at the appropriate time.
Okay.
How many years is this, sorry? 5 years.
5 years ago.
Yeah, and then, so the incremental price add is about $1 million, am I reading that right? This would result in a lifetime increase of the contract amount from 11 to 12?
Yes, ma'am.
So we already have a contract that has all that baked in, this is just the additional module?
Yes, ma'am, correct, yes, ma'am.
Okay, got it, okay, okay.
All right, take two.
Right.
All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Martin.
Okay, it is recommended that the Board of Commissioners move to close this portion of the regular meeting to convene into executive session to discuss certain privileged matters pursuant to Georgia Code Section 50-14-3B1. It is estimated that the executive session may last a minimum of 30 minutes. At the conclusion of the executive session, the board will reconvene into the public portion of the regular meeting.
May I have a motion to close this portion of the regular meeting so that the board may convene into executive session to discuss certain privileged matters?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Hooker and seconded by Commissioner Faruqi. Is there any discussion by the board to temporarily close this portion of the regular meeting at this time to convene into executive session? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Abstentions, the motion carries. The regular meeting is adjourned at 3:04 PM, 1 hour on the nose.
saying? Oh, no, no, I got it. I ain't coming over for a camera.
Ms. Washington, can I take it away, or do you need to provide introductory remarks?
No, I think you can proceed from page 18.
I gotcha.
Okay.
All right, we have concluded our discussion in executive session and are reconvening into the public portion of the regular meeting. No actions were taken in executive session where we discussed a real estate matter. I call the regular meeting back to order. I take note that an in-person quorum of the board is still present. The time that we are regularly reconvening is 5:22 p.m. I understand there are no reports scheduled at this time, and that we will defer our report and presentation from the CEO. Is that correct?
That's correct, Madam Chair.
All right. Do we have any final comments from commissioners before we close out today's meeting? Hearing none, if there's no further business of the board, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So move.
Second.
It has been moved by Commissioner Alvarado and seconded by Commissioner Faruqi. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. No nays, no abstentions. The meeting is adjourned at 5:22 p.m. Thank you so much. Appreciate everyone.